Hey everybody, this is Jason Ostrowski, and welcome to another edition of the Everything Real Estate Podcast. In this week's episode, we have a conversation with Brad Dahler, who is a top producing agent, and maybe that's not giving him enough of his due. He is a mega agent in the Florida Panhandle on the Emerald Coast with BHHS Beach Properties of Florida. In his second full year in the real estate business, Brad has achieved $100 million in sales. And so today I wanted to have a conversation with him about what it took to get there. What is he doing to produce those kinds of numbers? Because obviously we are all interested in that. And also what makes Brad who he is? You know, how does his background tie in with his business and his success in the real estate business, and how Brad smartly invested in his business to start his career, took a chance on himself, and has then shifted that business model into a true referral-based powerhouse that keeps growing year over year. So let's get right into it with Brad, and we'll pick it up on the other side. Brad, how you doing today? How's it going down there?
Doing great, man. The weather's good. Turning a little bit, but the weather's good, and it's good to see you. And excited to be here.
Now, does it get cold? I mean, it gets cold in the Panhandle, right? It doesn't stay warm all the time, right? But
it can get chilly. No snow really to speak of or anything like that. But it can get chilly. It can get
I got to tell you, you're not missing anything with the snow, man. I'm ready to come down there and join you full time. Maybe I'll work with you, under you at this point.
Whatever.
So anyway, well, listen. Thank you for joining us. I'm really excited to have you. Because your story, I think, is one that needs to be told. And we're going to start off the year here with, I think, some really good value for the agents with what you do with your business. Now, I wanted to start with a little background on you before you got into real estate, where you're from, how you kind of got into things, because I think that plays a large part of your success in our industry. And everyone has a journey to get to where they are now. And I want to talk a little bit about yours. So you and I had a conversation a while ago about, number one, you've been in the real estate business for how long?
A little, barely over 2 years. I was on site for a developer for about 8 months. And that's when I first started. And then I started general sales in March of 2021.
All right. So that's really important, I think, to the point that I want to hit here. Now, you are in Florida now, but how long have you lived in Florida?
3.5 years.
And prior to that, you were in Missouri, right?
Yep, Missouri, correct.
All right. And were you in Springfield? Was Springfield where you were from?
That's right. Yep, Springfield,
right.
Missouri.
I'm glad I got that right. All right. So let's talk just a little bit about your journey getting to Florida, what you were doing in Missouri before you got into real estate, because I say this on the podcast all the time. I'm always fascinated by what people did prior to getting into real estate, because I think that helps to build that success foundation. So can you talk a little bit about your journey, where you started, say, post-college? Because one of the things that I found out about you is that you actually sold MCI long distance in college. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. That was in college. Yeah, I did that for quite a while. It was working 35 hours a week, 4 to 10 or 4 to 11 at night. And then on the Saturdays from, 8 to noon, 8 to 1. And it was selling MCI long distance phone service all across the country. Cold calling people. It was a, inside sales job. And it was repetitive, very hard, very long, very grinding, but it was, very helpful, very educational for me. Yeah.
Well, outside of being a masochist, because you have to be a masochist to get on the phone and make those calls every day, day in and day out, it seems like it might be torture, but you did pretty well with that. And from my understanding, you enjoyed that, and you learned a lot on how to talk to people during that time period. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, that you hit the nail on the head. I'm not just being agreeable, but yeah, I learned a lot. You deal, I laugh when people talk about rejection. I'm like, oh man, yeah, you don't know some of the things I've been called or told or hung up on or whatever. But more importantly than that, you have to make a very, very, very quick connection. Like when I say quick, like less than 3 minutes, less than 2 minutes, quick connection over the phone. Yeah.
Yeah. And I would think that you got one shot with something like that. And the pressure is on there to perform. So I think putting you on the spot like that, I know early in my career, I sat new construction, and that's kind of where I cut my teeth on how to talk to people. People would come into the showroom, what questions to ask, when to ask them, those pressure points of pain and pleasure. What are they looking for? What are they not looking for? You have to learn that very quickly to potentially convert a client. So, okay. So you get past that, you learn a lot from, your MCI days. And then where did you venture into? What did you do after that point in your career?
Well, when I was doing that, also kind of on a part-time flexible basis, I was working for, in my opinion, one of the top real estate agents in Missouri, right? In my opinion, most successful the way he runs his business, Murney Associates in Springfield, Missouri. So I was taking pictures of homes, running errands, putting up lock boxes, taking lock boxes, putting signs in the yard, basically just a runner. And that allowed me to see how the owner of that brokerage and his team, somebody on his team then is now my real estate coach. His name's Chris Bryant out of Springfield, Missouri. He's helped me a lot as a coach currently, but it just kind of showed me how they took care of their customers, how they gifted, how they, it was like a white glove concierge service that's kind of stuck with me. From then, that was 20 years ago, right? That was, 18, 20 years ago. It still stuck with me. And a lot of things I saw then, I utilize now. But to answer your question specifically, after that, I was in face-to-face fractional sales. So it was real estate. You had to be licensed, but it was more of a fractional sales, vacation type sale. And it's very similar to MCI, where you had to make a quick connection. You had an hour and a half or whatever, but it was face-to-face. The only difference was this was face-to-face. So that kind of gave me the confidence with in-person, because the only thing I'd ever known was via the telephone. Yeah.
Yeah. So your background is setting you up to be able to talk to people, right? And you have to be a people person anyway. And I can just tell, us being on Zoom and from what I've seen video wise, that you just have that knack of connecting with people and you do it well. And so,
thank you.
So you transitioned. So what made you go then from Missouri to Florida? How did you end up in Florida?
Family. Yep. My family.
Okay.
My family lived here. I'm in business with them in a small capacity compared to them. And it allowed us to move down here when my wife and I were pregnant with now my oldest daughter, who's 3.5. So it allowed us to move down here. And I was going crazy. You've heard the expression, it's the hunt, not the kill, right? I was going crazy, not being in some type of sales, really, really just communicating with people, not being able to communicate with people on a business level and meet new people and help them. So that, that's helped a lot, or that's why I moved down here. And that's why I got into real estate.
And so you finally take that leap, you get into residential real estate full time a couple years ago. And in 2020, this is all this background is setting up to what I'm going to talk about now. And in 2020, in your first full year in the business, you did just about 35 million in sales. Is that correct?
Yeah. 35 to 40. Yep. Yeah, that sounds right.
I mean, give or take 5 million. Who's counting it?
Yeah.
Right? So, that's amazing, first and foremost. But then the following year, 2021, you are going to close about 100 million. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah.
I mean, that's just filthy, man. I mean, every time that I think that I'm doing okay, I look at someone like yourself and I'm like, 100 million in his second year. That is just insane. And so, first of all, congratulations to you. And what that says to me right away is that you are doing something very right. And so I think that we need to have that's why I wanted to have you on today, because running a successful real estate business such as yours doesn't boil down to just one thing. And so, everybody's looking for that secret sauce, that magic bullet. Well, if I just do X, I'm going to make it to, 100 million like Brad next year. Right. So what do you attribute to your meteoric rise earlier in your career? I mean, that's, to be 2 years in and doing 100 million. What do you attribute to that? I know maybe that's not just one thing, but overall.
Yeah. Investing in my real estate business like it's a real business. Okay. So when I got into this, I made a commitment before I even passed my real estate exam and got my license. If I'm going to do this, if I were to go open up a restaurant or franchise a gym or a preschool or a Build-A-Bear, right? Whatever. If you're going to go get a business loan and go to the bank and say, hey, I'm going to open a business, the basic terms the basic way that goes is, hey, here's my business plan. We're going to give you X amount of dollars and you can take that money and go start your business, and you got to pay the bank back. And then one day that loan will be paid off and you'll have more money and hopefully you don't go bankrupt. Right. Well, here I'm like, well, I'm not going to go getting a business loan to sell real estate, but I am going to, treat it like a business that I would be opening up like I had a loan, just like any other business. Right. And I'm going to invest in it. I'm going to take X amount of dollars, right? 10%, 20%, whatever that looks like in the beginning. And I'm going to, when I get a sale or get a closing, when I get that paycheck, I'm going to put X amount of dollars back into my my business account, my real estate account. And then I'm going to put some back into marketing. And I'm going to, here's 5 things I want to do with marketing. And I'm going to, if something doesn't work, I will check it off my list and move on to try something different. And, this is probably the wrong way to say it, but play puppet master with 4 to 5, maybe 3 to 5 different marketing avenues until I start getting results. But even if that is, giving back to the people that have bought from me by keeping them, up to date on their investment, gifting them to where it's not just, it's a genuine gift. That's something that is like really heartfelt, right? Or something meaningful that is personal to them. But yeah, I run it like a business and invest in my business financially. Yep.
Yeah. So you're kind of answering one of the questions I had, because I know you take between 15 to 30% of your commission, put that into your business account, and you're going to reinvest that money in your business. So you talked a little bit about that specifically. I just wanted to get into some of the specifics of that, because people are going to be like, okay, Brad invests, where does he put that money? And you mentioned reinvesting in your current and past clients. Maybe that is investing in a quarterly report. I know you're big on doing some quarterly reports, but you do it in a way that's very specific and looks really good. How about online marketing? How about, tangible marketing like mailers, all that kind of stuff? Like, where do you invest that money and where do you find the biggest ROI for your business at this point?
Biggest ROI would be investing back into my current clients that have bought and sold a home from me. But that's because I've gotten to that point here the past 6 months, right? But I've been doing that from day one. So that's my biggest ROI, is investing back into my clients. To answer your question, as far as where does the money go? Hey, I started off using Zillow, right? So here was kind of my mindset. I don't want to start pumping a lot of marketing dollars when the market's horrible, right? But I'm okay pumping a lot of, I don't want to pump a lot of marketing dollars when I need to make money to help me make money. I want to do it. I rather overspend on marketing when the market's good, to build my database or to build my list of people that have done a transaction with me, right? I feel like a lot of people, it makes more sense for them to say, oh man, I don't have a lot of sales going on right now, or the market's kind of whatever. I need to start spending some more money to get my name out there. I don't know if I agree with that. I think you do it when the getting's good, right?
Yeah.
That way you get those clients with you. So, hey, I did a little bit towards Zillow. I did a little bit towards Google AdWords. I did a little bit with direct mailers in a specific neighborhood I farm. And I didn't let one transaction go by where I sent a direct mailer. That it was the nicest direct mailer that, that the postcard company I work with has to offer. You know what I mean? And I knew the direct mailers might not be the best return, or I know they are not the best return for, for getting a direct phone call. Hey, come list my home, or hey, help me buy a home. But it's my brand, right? It's my brand recognition. So, doing that consistently enough for 2 years where you don't let one transaction go by with sending out a very high quality, slowly but surely, I'm trying to become the guy in that neighborhood. Not that there's not other agents in there, that there's other great agents, right? That I don't just do it one out of every 4 sales. I do it every sale.
Yeah, and I want to talk about specifically about what you just mentioned there, because I think a lot of agents are scared, right? I talk to agents all the time. I'm scared to put out this money for XYZ, right? You talk about your branding and how important that is. And I think about going back to what you said about treating your business like a business. If you were going to get a mailer from, say, a pizza shop that just opened down the road, and they're going to use really cheap flyers, maybe the yellow stock flyers that you get, it's black and white, it doesn't look good. Are you really impressed by that? I want something. I am a sucker for good marketing. I've said that time and time again. If you have good marketing, I am probably going to try your product because I respect the fact that you're putting out the money to do that. Right. So I think there is a large contingent of people out there that look for that branding and look for brand consistency. So can you talk a little bit about your brand, why that's so important to keep it uniform across your platforms and all that? Because I've heard you talk about this before.
Yeah. No, you're exactly right. I want it to be very consistent. My marketing girl, that's awesome. That's phenomenal. Her name's Olivia. She helps me. I'm like, hey, I want to have the same look on postcard as I do Instagram, as I do whatever, right? Why am I that way? I know if I'm staying at a Westin hotel, I know there's going to be a certain level of quality. If I'm staying at a Four Seasons or a Ritz, there's a certain level of quality, right? Different location, but it's going to be the same type of customer service. That's kind of what I want every marketing, outlet to be for me, to where it's like, oh yeah, that's this one guy. That's the font he uses. Not that I have to use the same font every time, but same feel. Same feel. That way it does. They know it's me. And back to what you said a second ago, it's easy when you get a home under contract, right, for a real estate agent or a home pending, to do the quick math on what your commission's going to be. Right. That lasts for me for maybe 0.02 seconds. What I'm thinking about is, with the money I make from that, how can I turn that into 2-3 more deals?
I love that.
Right. I don't do the quick math. I don't do the quick math of, I'm going to make X amount of dollars. I don't even think I do that. I don't even know. I'm like, well, it is what it is. When I get the check, I'll know. But the great news is that'll allow me to give more money to go catapult this into 2-3 more deals.
And I think that's the biggest thing that I kind of glean from you, is that you're always forward thinking, and you think of the macro. You think about just real estate in the business world, right? How would other competing, because you're not just competing necessarily against other realtors or real estate companies or teams or whatever. You're competing in the business world, and you're thinking about that business that way. And I find that to be the most refreshing thing about you, is that it is, you're looking at things through a lens in the business world, not just real estate specific, and what works as a whole in the business world and not just real estate specific. And I think looking forward to getting more business and perpetuating it from each deal that you do and getting excited about that is what is separating you from, say, the competition, or someone that is just strictly focused on that commission and that's it. And then they're not going to do anything past that for their clients, So I think that's a really important lesson. Okay. So you get up every day. What does a typical day look like for you in the business world? Now, I know you have your marketing person. You also have, I believe, a transaction coordinator or an assistant of some kind of.
Yep.
Right. So what do you focus on per day? What does it look like for you?
Yeah, well, it definitely does not look like it, but I believe it or not, I do ride a Peloton. It doesn't look like it. Yeah, I might follow it up with McDonald's for breakfast, but I do I do ride the Peloton as much as I can, and that gets my head right. I enjoy that, and get the kids help my wife get the kids ready. She's doing the heavy lifting, obviously, but help her and get to the office. I don't have set hours I work, but me and my real estate partner friend that works alongside me, we're in the office a lot. We don't have to be here by 9, but we show up between 8 and 9 every day, right? Every day, knock out critical emails, reach out to a few people of deals we have going on, basically customer service, right? The first half of the day, clean up. And then, after lunch to 4 to 5 o'clock, prospect, make a few phone calls. I don't cold call saying I will. I'm not above it. As you know, I used to do MCI, right? But I only cold call with intention behind it. I have a buyer looking for a specific house in a neighborhood, right? And it's real, right? I don't, or I don't cold call saying, hey, can I list your house? Here's what it's worth. There's always a reason to call, right? I'm a big believer, and I know, I might be getting the cart ahead of the horse because I'm sure you're going to bring this up. I'm a big believer in hard, tangible mail, right? It's a lot more efficient to send an email, and I still do that. I do it two ways, but I want my people to know if I have I have 2 really good buyers right now looking in a specific neighborhood, and I feel like they're very loyal to me. I'm their agent, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I went by this community yesterday, put together a very nice, thick, beautiful package for them, wrote a personal note, and 2-day aired it, for $12 each to their house, right? So they will be getting that. One will be getting it on Thursday. One will be getting it on Friday. And once they receive that, I have it timed to where I'm going to hit them with an email saying, hey, I know you received that hard mail today. Here's the digital version for your records. I really look forward to working with you.
Yeah. I think your attention to detail for these things it's always the little things that stand out to people, right? I know for me and from a customer service standpoint is that if you take that one little extra step for me, we go by the golden rule and then there's the platinum rule. And we talk about, treat people how they want to be treated, and you go above and beyond with that. And so, yes, one of my questions was going to be about your mailers because, how time intensive is that for you? Because to put together something like that, on let's say a quarterly report for your clients that looks great. It's a booklet. I think you said that you put together.
Yeah.
How long does that take you per client to be able to do that?
15, 20 minutes. Sometimes, here's an example of what I did in every area. It doesn't matter what area you live in. I'll get the highest end local magazine, even if it's not a real estate magazine, just a magazine for our area. I'll go buy 30 of them. There was a Wall Street Journal article of our area about real estate investing last year. So I print that off on a very nice paper, right, and have it bound. I don't just staple it. I have it bound at UPS for $2 and then, or my office for free. And then I put together a couple of the past 2 quarterly reports that I print off and have them bound. And I have, 20 packets ready to go. So when I have a really good conversation with a buyer that I feel like is a hot, right? Or even maybe not a hot, right? Somebody that I feel like, hey, this is they might pull the trigger in the next year. I will print off their address and I will send it to them with a little handwritten note, and takes me 15 minutes. Yeah. Everything I do with a mailer, with a gift, and it needs to be genuine. It's not smoke and mirrors. I want the person receiving it saying to themselves, oh God, this guy has some time in this. Like he's not just hitting send on an email. Like this dude like put some time into this. You know what I mean? I know how I feel when somebody puts time into me.
Yeah. And I think the quality, right? And just having that quality and having that follow-up, having that attention to detail and making someone feel like they're important, like they are worth your time. Here's Brad Dahler. He's, big on the Emerald Coast, 30A, if I have that correct. Is
you're right.
That you do a lot of business in, and you're taking the time and effort to follow up with them. I think it just shows, that you care and that you are they're in good hands. You are going to be treated properly. You're going to be treated with the quality that you deserve. So, kudos to you for doing that, because that's really impressive. And that's really cool that you're doing that for your potential clients and your clients. So, all right. So what are you going to be working on now that you've reached that $100 million mark, right? Where do you go from here? What are you going to be working on that's going to expand your business this coming year, 2022?
Yeah, if 10 is the best and 1 is the worst, I'm running a solid level 4 on video.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
I'm running it. So I have my coach that I was bragging on, Chris Bryant, who means the world to me, and I, personally and professionally, I think I know how impressive he is and great he is. He's challenging me to be better at video. He's not gonna let it go. So I've done more quarterly reports on video, and I'm going to continue to do like a video bio of myself, just a personal and, that way I can send to people to get to know me. And then also do quarterly and monthly reports, video on different things. So that's going to be my focus for 2022. The short answer is get better at video. I mean, just, get video and, continue to hammer down on my Google My Business reviews.
I think that's always something, I didn't mean to cut you off, Brad, but that's something that I think everybody needs to be better at is video. None of us are experts in front of the camera for the most part. There's some people that do it really well in real estate, but I think it's something that a lot of us need to work on. So, I'm right there with you.
Yeah. You inviting me on this podcast, number one, I know how nice and great you are and what Jimmy says about you, but this helps with it. Right.
Yeah.
So I appreciate it.
Every little bit counts. I know, a few years ago, and this is I was thinking about this actually today, is that, I send out video email, right? And a few years back, I was just loath to do it. I hated, because I'm a perfectionist. So being in front of the camera and doing, 10 takes to get it exactly how I want to do it can be time consuming. But I think as you go on and you go through just doing it, you realize that it's about just doing it. It's not about getting it perfect. It can be imperfect. Everybody is imperfect. I don't think everybody expects the world out of you. I think it's getting it out there and showing your true self, while you're doing it. I think that's the most important thing. Okay. All right. So, we talked about your authenticity. And I think really that's what jumps through off the page to me when I talk to you. I think, again, just in speaking to you very briefly, that you are a very authentic person. And before we came on, you're like, I'm just going to let it go. So I'm just going to be myself. Right. And that's all we can do. So what do you genuinely love about real estate? Because it comes through in your person, right? You genuinely love what you do. So why do you love real estate? Why is that, important to your business?
Yeah. I don't want this to come across the wrong way. Right. Cause I get no one I don't want this to come across the wrong way, but I believe to my core that if a client's working with me, I'm going to get them the best deal to be had on the home they want to buy. Like, I believe that. I believe that if they go with somebody else, that agent's going to be great, but I could have got them a better deal on the house they're trying to buy. So in my mind, I am helping them tremendously, right? I mean, if I'm saving somebody tens of thousands of dollars, or even $1,000, I feel like, I know that's helping them. Right. So I feel to my core that I am helping them get the best deal on a home or finding a home that they might not have found otherwise. So to answer your question is, I feel like I'm helping people. I feel like I'm helping people. Now, is the market we're in part of that? Maybe. The market doesn't hurt. You know what I mean? But even in that's all I know. All I know is what I know. And I feel like, I will get them the best deal there is to be had.
Well, I mean, you have the proof behind you, right? Your success, I don't care what market we're in, doing the business that you're doing you're doing something right. I think having that confidence goes a long way with clients. We always teach, whatever you do, just be confident in doing it, and because I think that comes across in what you're doing and the belief in yourself to be able to do that. Success breeds success, and so
thank you.
So I wanted to touch upon something that you said real quick. And when we talk about your marketing dollar, we talk about what you're doing. One thing that I forgot to mention was I heard you say hire slow and fire fast. And so can you talk about that? Because I think for our newer agents out there and marketing wise, you had said you give stuff maybe, 3 or 4 months to see what the return on things are. I usually go a little bit longer, maybe 6 months. But can you talk about the hire slow, fire fast mentality that you have?
Yeah. This is not an easy pill to swallow for a lot of people. But if I'm going to do something marketing and spend, I'm not going to spend $500 for 8 months. I'd rather spend $3,000 for 3 months or $4,000, really get a feel for how it is. If it's not working out, I'll move on. Right. There's a very well, you guys can read between the lines. Zillow's worked out pretty well for me, but now I've gotten to a point where I can tailor off of it. Do you see what I'm saying? Yeah. I used it to get me to a certain point, and now I can tailor off of it, right? Zillow's biggest competitor, probably in my mind, it wasn't a good fit for me. I went gung-ho the same way I did with them, and it wasn't there. So I moved on pretty quick, redistributed that money to Google AdWords, went through a couple people to help me manage my Google, and it's blowing me away. I love it. So I hope that answers your question. If you're going to do something, I want to give it a fair shake, right? What I mean by fair shake is I don't want to just limp along with $250 a month or $500. It might be a tough pill to swallow, but if you can get a deal or two that pays for that, will pay for it for 6 to 9 months, then you can make a decision if you want to stay with it.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like, and you mentioned Zillow before, and this is just one way. We always talk about there's 100 different ways to be successful in real estate, but it seems like you made the commitment to do that early, to get that heavy lift, right? To get
That's right. That's right.
And now you're at a point where with your business where now you're just cultivating your leads and making sure that you invest in your clients to be able to get referral-based business. Is that fair to say?
That's it. That what you just said, you hit the nail on the head. And hey, here's something I'm going to be a little vulnerable. I've never told anybody this, not even Jimmy, but my wife knows this, right? It's not like I had, a lot of money in the beginning to make that commitment. It's not like if somebody said, oh, well, that's easy to say, Brad was able to have X amount of dollars in the bank to make that commitment. No, that's not the case. If anything, it was the polar opposite, but I made that commitment.
I think I mean, it's just amazing. Well, first of all, thank you for sharing that. And secondly, I do think I know another agent just like yourself that did the same exact thing. And it amazes me because quite frankly, I might've been too scared to do that. I had just the guts to do that, to believe in yourself that much, to say, I'm going to make this investment and I'm going to make it work. Right. And sometimes by sheer force of will, you make that happen for your career. So, I just,
it was on a credit card. I didn't have the money to do it.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's crazy. Like I said, you are made of sterner stuff than I am, but more power to you for doing that, because sometimes you got to take that leap, and sometimes you got to take that risk in order to make things happen. So anyway, listen, Brad, I want to make sure before we get out of here, where people can find you, online, Instagram, website, where can they connect with you from the Philadelphia market?
Yeah, no. Yeah. Well, yeah. Before I appreciate everything. This has been fun. You have something about you that just makes me want to keep talking. So good for you.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, Brad Dahler. My Instagram is Brad_Dahler, Dahler 30A. So yeah, Brad_Dahler 30A is my Instagram. And then Brad at B for boy, P for Paul, FLA.com. But my phone number is 850-842-8800. I'm hyper responsive. My wife doesn't like it sometimes if we're at dinner, so I got to get better at that. That's another focus for 2022 is work-life balance. But yeah, obviously, people can reach out to you or me, and I'd love to work with some people.
Absolutely, Brad. And we have a lot of people from our market heading down your way. So I just want to make sure if you need somebody down in the Panhandle there and on the Emerald Coast, that you reach out to Brad, make sure that you connect with him. So Brad, it was a real pleasure, man. Thank you for sharing your story. You've been awesome. I hope this motivates our agents in 2022. And you gave us some good food for thought on that podcast. So thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, dude. Been great.
Thanks.
Let's keep in touch.
That was the podcast this week with Brad Dahler. It was great to pick his brain a little bit and learn more about his business. A couple takeaways from my conversation with Brad. Number one, Brad's attention to detail stands out to me. And that could be in various forms throughout our conversation he was talking about. That could be the quarterly market report that he puts out to his clients. Very high quality, very detailed. Looks like he put a lot of time and effort into that. And that goes a long way with your clients. It could be Brad's branding and how it needs to look a certain way, or the font needs to match this font. It's the cohesiveness of his branding, that attention to detail. Or it may be just something as simple as taking advantage of every single sold property that you have for marketing purposes. That may be following up a sale in a community that you're farming in, or putting something out to your sphere of influence, but is taking advantage of every single opportunity that you have. And that starts with the attention to detail Brad has in his business. Number two, even though Brad was relatively new to residential real estate sales, he had a long history of having to talk to people for a living. He learned what it took and where to connect with people, how to read people over the phone, how to make that connection in a short period of time. It was all about practice leading up to Brad's career in residential sales. So you wouldn't go and run a marathon without practicing first beforehand. And the same goes for real estate. Practice makes perfect. So if you're not perfect with your scripts, if you're not perfect with your language, there's always room for practice. Make sure that you work on your presentations. Make sure that you learn the right wording to use with your clients. Look at scripts. Practice with your loved ones or colleagues. It all makes a difference in your business. And finally, number three, and I think the biggest thing was Brad was not afraid to invest in himself. Even when, he didn't have a lot of money in the bank, even when he was putting debt on a credit card to jumpstart his business, he invested in himself and believed in himself. And I think a lot of times as real estate agents, I think we are all guilty of not having that supreme confidence to be allocating money sometimes when we don't have it in our business. We kind of shy away from doing that. But Brad's aggressiveness and betting on himself paid off. And as you can see, his business is thriving because of it. And now Brad doesn't have to pay for leads anymore. He just cultivates his sphere of influence. It's now a referral-based business for himself, and you can see the results. Well, that's it for this week's episode. We'll be back in a few weeks with a new topic, a new guest. And as always, if I didn't cover a topic that you would like to hear about yet, please reach out to me at jason.ostrowski@foxroach.com. And if you haven't liked and subscribed to the podcast yet, please do so. Leave us a review. It helps us to reach more people and get our message out. Until next time, this is Jason Ostrowski signing off and saying stay safe out there, stay selling, and we'll catch you on the next episode of the Everything Real Estate Podcast.